The wind howled like a dying beast across the frozen wastelands of Kalor 7, a planet where ice ruled and mercy froze before it could take root. Captain Alara Voss huddled closer to the makeshift thermal generator, its feeble glow barely pushing back the darkness that surrounded her shelter. Outside, something massive shifted in the snow, a shadow among shadows, patient and eternal. Alpha Corin had taken his post again. Alara's fingers traced the jagged scar across her forearm, a memento from that night 3 cycles ago when everything changed, when she had been foolish enough, or perhaps human enough, to defy the galaxy's most fundamental rule: never interfere with a Vraken pack during culling season. The memory burned hotter than her failing fire. The distress beacon had been faint, almost swallowed by the blizzard's rage. Alara's scout ship had picked it up by chance, a weak pulse emanating from the northern ice fields. Standard protocol demanded she report it to the Galactic Survey Corps and move on. Kalor 7 was uncharted territory, and the Vraken, apex predators standing 9 feet, tall with obsidian claws and eyes like molten amber, had made it clear that outsiders were not welcome. But Alara Voss had never been good at following protocol. She found them in a collapsed ice cavern, half buried beneath tons of frozen rubble. 7 Vraken cubs, their silver fur matted with frost and blood, their mother's crushed body shielding them even in death. The blizzard raged overhead, and somewhere in the white void, she could hear the guttural calls of the pack moving away, abandoning the weak as their species had done for millennia. The cubs mewled, a sound so fragile it shattered something in Alara's chest. She had approximately 4 hours before hypothermia would claim her. The cubs had less. Her emergency kit contained 1 thermal blanket, 3 nutrition packs, and a single-shot plasma torch. Her ship was a 2-hour trek through chest-deep snow and sub-zero winds that could flay skin from bone. Alara looked at the cubs, at their tiny claws flexing uselessly, at the way the smallest one's breathing had become shallow and ragged. She thought about her daughter back on Earth Station Gamma, about the bedtime stories she would never tell if she died on this frozen hell. Then she picked up the first cub and began walking. The journey became a blur of white and pain. Alara carried 2 cubs at a time, strapping them against her chest with torn strips of her thermal suit. She made 4 trips total, each one longer than the last as the blizzard intensified and her body began to fail. Her fingers turned black with frostbite. Ice crystals formed in her lungs with every breath. Twice she fell and couldn't remember standing back up, but she did, again and again. On the final trip, carrying the smallest cub, the one with amber eyes that reminded her so much of her own child's gaze, Alara's legs finally gave out within sight of her ship. She collapsed face first into the snow, the cub still clutched to her chest, certain that this frozen tomb would be her last contribution to the universe. That was when she heard it, a roar that shook the very air, deep and primal and filled with something she had never expected to hear from a Vraken: anguish. Alpha Corin emerged from the blizzard like a titan of old Earth mythology, his massive frame cutting through the wind as though it were nothing. His pack followed, 12 warriors, each capable of tearing a human apart in seconds. They had returned. They had tracked her. Alara held the cub tighter, prepared for the end, but Corin did not attack. He approached slowly, his amber eyes fixed on the 7 cubs huddled inside Alara's ship, warm and alive. He looked at Alara, half dead in the snow, her body broken from carrying his pack's future through a storm that should have killed her 10 times over. The Alpha knelt. With a gentleness that defied his fearsome nature, he lifted Alara from the snow, cub and all, and carried her into the ship. 3 cycles had passed since that night. The Galactic Survey Corps had declared Alara AWOL and presumed dead. The Vraken had claimed her as something else entirely, Packkin, the first human to ever bear such a title. Alpha Corin had not left her side since. Now, as the generator sputtered and dimmed, Alara heard the familiar scrape of claws against ice. Corin's massive head appeared in the entrance, snow clinging to his silver-black mane. He dropped an armful of thermal moss, rare and precious on this frozen world, beside her fire. His amber eyes studied her with an intensity that still made her breath catch. "You should rest inside," Alara said softly, knowing he understood her language even if he couldn't speak it. "The storm is getting worse." Corin's response was a low rumble deep in his chest. He settled himself at the entrance, his body forming a living barrier against the wind. Behind him, Ilara could see the 7 cubs, now nearly full-grown, patrolling the perimeter. They had learned from their alpha. They protected what was theirs. She was theirs now. Ilara added the thermal moss to her fire, watching as the flames grew stronger, pushing back the cold that sought to reclaim this small pocket of warmth. Outside, Karan's breathing became steady and rhythmic, a guardian's meditation. The cubs' howls echoed in the distance, a song of pack and family and debts that transcended species. The galaxy had rules about interference, about maintaining the natural order of things. But on Kalor 7, in a shelter of ice and desperation, Captain Alara Voss had learned a truth that no regulation could contain. Humanity's greatest strength was not its technology or its weapons. It was the refusal to look away when someone, anyone, needed help. And the universe, in its own mysterious way, remembered such things. As the blizzard raged and the fire crackled, Alpha Corin stood his eternal watch. And Alara Voss finally allowed herself to sleep, warm, protected, and home.